we're going to do 1.5, and for some reason 1.5 shows up at the bottom of your assignment list. I don't know why. I don't know how to fix it. So you'll just have to find it there. Oh, not where. That's okay. First two are free. So in 1.5, we're going to use the quadratic formula. So if I had the equation x squared minus 4x minus 5, does that factor? Are there two numbers that multiply to be 5 and add to be negative 4? X minus 5 and x plus 1. So my roots would be 5 and negative 1. Right? Well, what if the equation was x squared plus 2x minus 5? Are there two numbers that multiply to be negative 5 and add to be 2? No, so we need some other way to solve this. And the formula is called the quadratic formula. So you might want to write this down. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Yeah. You don't have to. I guess you could always not do it. Well, so there are actually two methods out there. One of them involves a huge number of steps. You take the equation, you mix up the equation, you do some things, move stuff around, divide by 2, square, add, square root, a whole bunch of steps. And that's called completing the square. And completing the square always works, but it's really hard to do. So instead, we have created this formula, and all of those steps are combined into one equation. And it turns out the equation is way easier than completing the square. So this is the easy way. Okay. So let me do this on the one that we already know the answer to, and then I'll do the other one. So in order for this to work, you have to have everything on the same side of the equation. Okay? You can't have stuff on one side and on the other side, and you also have to have everything in order. Your x squared has to be first, then your x, then your constant. And when we do that, a is this number, b is this number, and c is this number. Okay? So, and the formula is right here on this poster. It'll always be there, so you don't have to memorize the formula. So, let's plug it in. What is the opposite of b? Just 4. The x is part of the equation. B is negative 4. So the opposite of b would be 4 plus or minus the square root. And people make mistakes right here. What is b squared? What is negative 4 times negative 4? 16. But if I plug that in my calculator, negative 4 squared, why do I get negative 16? Your calculator is following order of operations. And it looks at this and says, according to order of operations, exponents occurs before subtraction. So I'm going to square it, and then I'll subtract, and that's why you get a negative. So when you're squaring negatives, and the same is true of fractions, you need to put it in parentheses, or just in your head remember that it has to be positive. B squared has to be positive. So 16, and then this piece right here is the most common mistake that people make. So I would write that off to the side. Negative 4 times, what is A? 1 times negative 5 is C. What does all of that equal? Positive 20. So I'm going to add 20. And then divide that by 2 times a, which is 2. What should I do now? So let's deal with the square root. I get the square root of 36. Does that square root? Yes. 4 plus or minus 6 over 2. It's both. So we have two answers. One of them is 4 plus 6, which is 10 divided by 2 is 5. The other one is 4 minus 6, which is negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1, which is the same thing I got doing it the short way. Well, why did I do this if I got the same answer I got before? And the answer is sometimes factoring doesn't work. Yeah, I'll work a couple. Okay. So let's do the same thing with this other equation. So in this equation, a equals 1, b equals 2, and c equals negative 5. What is the opposite of b? Negative 2. So negative 2 plus or minus the square root. What's b squared? 4. And then negative 4 times 1 times negative 5. That is plus 20 over 2. Okay. So that's negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 24 over 2. Okay. Well, how do we enter that into ALEKS? Let me show you. Come on. Oh, looks like I gotta drag it over. Okay. So this is not the right equation, but let me show you how you would type that in. So we need a fraction and we need a square root. So 2 plus the square root of 24 divided by 2, and then comma, and then we do the same thing. And I would write 2 minus the square root of 24 over 2. So there is no plus or minus button here. So if you have two answers, you need to type them in separately with a comma. And so it'll show you. This is what it wants to form in. 9 plus the square root of 33 divided by 6, and 9 minus the square root of 33 divided by 6. Does that make sense? Okay. But sometimes it's going to ask you for a decimal answer. Round your answer to the nearest hundredth. If there's more than one solution, separate them with commas. So how would I turn this into a decimal? Well, you could always not. So type in the top, negative 2 plus the square root of 24, and then push enter, and then divide by 2. Why did I push enter and then divide by 2? Why didn't I do negative 2 plus square root of 24 divide 2? That would only divide the 24, and I want to divide both of them by 2, which is why I hit enter. So how would we round this to the nearest hundredth? 1.45. That 9 bumps the 4 up to a 5. And then the other answer is going to be negative 2 minus the square root of 24. Push enter, and then divide by 2. The other answer is negative 3.45. Okay. Let's do another one. 4x squared minus 7x plus 2. Okay, opposite of b? Negative? Nope, 7. So 7 plus or minus the square root of 49. And then off to the side, negative 4 times 4 times 2. That's 32. Negative 32. Over 2a. 8. Okay. So 7 plus or minus the square root of 17 over 8. If it asks you for the answers, you would do 7 plus root 17 over 2, comma, 7 minus root 17 over 8. Okay. If it wants the decimals, then you would do 7 plus the square root of 17, and then divide by 2, and then 7 minus the square root of 17, and we hit enter, and then divide that by 2. Oh, 8 divided by 8. Thank you. Yeah, don't divide by 2, divide by 8. So you plug in this, enter, and then divide 8. And then you plug in this, enter, and divide by 8. Does that make sense? Okay. What if instead of a 17, this was a 49? Does 49 square root? Yeah, it becomes 7. So we get 7 plus or minus 7 over 8. And then you just do 7 plus 7, which is 14. Divide that by 8. 14 over 8, which is the same as 7 over 4. And then 7 minus 7 is 0. So the other answer would be 0. Okay? Now there is another problem that's similar in your homework, but the numbers are a lot bigger. Okay. So for these, oh, guess I got to find it. These story problems. All right. So this says a ball is thrown from an initial height of 5 feet with an initial upward velocity of 37 feet per second. The ball's height after t seconds is given by that graph. So here you are standing here, and you're holding a ball, and you're holding the ball 5 feet off the ground, and you throw the ball into the air. So the ball is going to go up and down and hit the ground. Okay? The equation of where the ball is right here. That equation describes the movement of the ball. And notice, 2 of the variables are in t, and 1 of the variables is in h. So it wants to know, when will h equal 25? So at some point, that ball will be 25 feet high. As it goes up, it will pass 25 feet, and as it comes down, it will pass 25 feet. So we need to put 25 in for h, right there. So 25 equals 5 plus 37t minus 16t squared. Can I use the quadratic formula right now? No. Why not? It doesn't all equal 0. So you can either move everything to the right or move everything to the left. Doesn't really matter. Which way do you want to move it? Move it to the right? Okay, so I will subtract 25. And I get 0 equals negative 20 plus 37t minus 16t squared. Now, that's out of order. And it's okay if it's out of order as long as you remember this is A, this is B, and this is C. And if we solve that, it will tell us when did the ball reach 25 feet on the way up, and when did the ball reach 25 feet on the way down. So if we were to graph this, that would show us the whole graph. It's like, you know when you have y equals, so y equals 2x plus 1, and you graph it as a y variable. So that would give you all the possible values of this equation. So you could think of it as a y. But we don't want to know all heights. We only want to know the 25-foot heights. Okay, so negative 37 plus or minus the square root, and I don't know this in my head. Oh, oops. So 37 squared is 1369, and then negative 4 times what? What's A? Negative 16 times what's C? Negative 20. So negative 4 times negative 16 times negative 20 is minus 1280 over what? 2 times negative 16, which is negative 32. Okay, let's simplify that. 1369 minus 1280, and I get negative 37 plus or minus the square root of 89 over negative 32. And if you look back at the problem, round to the nearest 100th. So plug that in the calculator. Negative 32 plus the square root of 89. Hit enter. Divide that by negative 32. And then negative 37 minus the square root of 89. And then we divide that by negative 32. So the answers are 0.71 seconds and 1.45 seconds. And then we would just type that in there. So 0.7 of a second, the ball reaches 25 feet, and then it crowns, and it comes back, and at 1.45 seconds, it hits that 25-foot mark again. Okay? Can we handle this? There you go. Okay. Do you want to see another story problem 1, or are you good? They're all exactly the same. You have to take your h value and plug it into the function, move it to the other side, and then use the quadratic formula on that. Yeah, 1.5. And you got to scroll down to see it. You can use one of those. Yes, you certainly may. Don't listen to these guys.